Ah, yes, aesthetics. Somebody's personal preference on if a man looks good or not. And I know that sounds weird, but if you're a fan of bodybuilding, probably not, especially if you've seen that weird scene from Pumping Iron with Ed Corney and Arnold in the shower. But anyway, I thought nothing of it. Back to this interesting topic, aesthetics. Andrew Jacked, he obviously looks better than certain guys. Like Nick Walker. Hey, I like Nick Walker, but aesthetically speaking, there's just no competition. So Andrew Jacked, probably the most aesthetically pleasing bodybuilder of any of the current competitors. Now, this was a fan request actually sent in by Black Katanani, 730 or 7,300. But anyway, guys and gals, everybody in between, look forward to getting your name shown here on these request videos. Andrew Jacked, man oh man, he sure does done look good. But compared to the guys from, say, the 80s, is he really that aesthetically pleasing? You have Bob Paris, who was just incredible. I say that phrase, dream wrapped in a blanket. This is that, I guess, for the lack of a better term. Thierry Pastel. Thierry Pastel, are you kidding me? I think he might have the best physique, in my opinion, that I've ever seen. Oh, no. Francis Benfato. This is aesthetics. You look this up. I bet you if you Google aesthetically speaking bodybuilder, this guy will come right up. But you know what? I've done a video like this. I'll link it to you at the end, where I list off all of the most aesthetically pleasing bodybuilders in the history of the sport. But today, let's go back to Andrew Jacked for a second. Today we're going to do this a little bit different, just to keep things entertaining for you fellers and fellacies, baby please. Andrew Jacked, he was top 5 at the Olympia couple of times. Those other blokes I mentioned, they weren't even close. Not even close. So today, we're going to focus on the guys that used their aesthetics to become a success in bodybuilding. And Andrew Jacked, he is absolutely on his way to the top. I mean, top 5 at the Olympia 2 times. Yeah, I call that a success. So Andrew Jacked is number 10 on this list. Considering it was a request to see a top 10 list, we're going to inch our way to number 1. But first, number 9 on the list. Anybody know who this guy is? I do. Well, of course I do. I put him in the video. Say his name at home before I say it. Go ahead, tell a friend. It is none other than Serge Nubret. Perhaps the most aesthetically pleasing bodybuilder of all time. No, he did not win an Olympia title, but he was that guy in Pumping Iron who spoiled it for big old Lou Ferrigno. You see, Lou was a giant, but Serge Nubret, he beat him on aesthetics. This guy was incredible. He competed earlier on also, back in 73, 72 as well. He looked outstanding every time he competed. And in my opinion, he was always a thorn in Arnold's side. Not because of the size, the bodybuilding was going that way, but because of those perfect lines. And out of all the guys, I think Serge Nubret probably had a better chance of beating Arnold, especially based on aesthetics. So Serge Nubret makes it to number 9 on the list. Number 8, this is Mohamed Makaway, and I consider him just that much more successful as a bodybuilder than one Serge Nubret. Sure, Serge did place second in 75, but there was the overall with Franco Columbo, so some people say, well, he probably would have placed third overall. Take a look at the record of one Mohamed Makaway. You skipped ahead to 83 there. You can see he placed second at the Olympia. 84, he placed second at the Olympia. 2 different occasions. Wow. Won some competitions there as well. But perhaps even more important than a mere second place at the Mr. Olympia event, on the way, he defeated the likes of Lee Haney on the Mr. Olympia stage. Only 2 bodybuilders can say that, and one is standing right next to them. You can't really see his handsome face there. You can kind of see his stash. It's Samir Banu. And the funny thing is, in 84, Mohamed Makaway defeated the likes of Samir Banu. So that's 2 Mr. Olympia champions that he defeated. Actually, he defeated Larry Scott at one point in time, too. Weird. That's a lot of Olympia champions. Oh, and Sergio Oliva, I think, as well. Another one. And Frank Zane. How many Olympia champions did this man defeat? But either way, he makes this list because he defeated all of those guys, not on muscle size, not even on conditioning, but aesthetics. So if you've never heard of this guy, go ahead, look him up. There's all kinds. Great pictures of this guy. What a fantastic bodybuilder. He is number 8 on the list, Mohamed Makaway. And now, number 7. I'm sure a lot of you fellas are very familiar with this guy because his son is a current competitor. Anybody guess his name? I like to leave it hanging there for a little while. This is Lee Labrada. Wow, mass with class. He had all kinds of mass, especially for his time. And he was loaded with class, too. So, that's a good nickname for the guy. But more than just a great physique. You need more than a great physique to make this video. Lee Labrada had all kinds of success on the bodybuilding stage. And I mean a pile of success. Listen to this record. 87, he got 3rd. 88, he got 4th. A little bit of a slip, but by 89, he placed 2nd at the Mr. Olympia event. And in 1990, a lot of people actually say he should have beat Lee Haney at the Olympia. So Lee Labrada versus Lee Haney. Oh, Bob Ciccarello, you really missed your chance on this one. You could have, and the winner, Lee, and then just make them sweat because they're both called Lee. But yes, Lee Labrada, absolutely. He was not pushing Lee Haney on size or even on conditioning. It was the almighty A-word. The aesthetics of this guy earned him a lot of success on the bodybuilding stage. And he's number 7 on the list. Now let us keep trucking down. Number 6 on the list, Shawn Ray. And there's really no need to pause there and let you guys guess this dude's name. Shawn Ray, very famous. He keeps his nose in the scene, whether it's from controversial speeches he gives or just plain ticking people off. Hey, Shawn Ray will always be a legend, but that physique. Even the people that he ticks off have to admit, this is maybe the best. Everybody on this list, you could say that, but Shawn Ray, man, he probably does have the best physique that I've ever seen in my life. But unlike those poor gentlemen at the start of the video there that didn't place very high, Shawn Ray got himself a couple of sweet spots at the Olympia, a couple of silver medals, a couple of second place finishes to Dorian Yates, 94, 96, and obviously he was beating guys, giants, purely on aesthetics alone. Pure. Every time I do that noise, reminds you when you open up an old Tupperware that's been sitting. Pure. Anyway, Shawn Ray, number 6. And that, of course, brings us to number 5 on the list. Now, the ranking gets a little bit hairy here, because obviously Shawn Ray, in my opinion, is more aesthetically pleasing than a Flex Wheeler. It's close, but Flex Wheeler, I think he had more impact on the sport. Or I'm sure Shawn Ray would argue with that. But man, oh man, this guy looked good. I guess in certain poses, he probably was beating Shawn Ray in that aspect. But the guy has one up on Shawn Ray. He got a silver medal, 93, but he got 2 more in the later 90s. And yes, he was huge. Maybe not as aesthetically pleasing, but compared to his competition, yes, he was still the more aesthetic guy in the group. And yeah, he was a huge success in bodybuilding. He won all kinds of shows, Arnold Classics, things of that nature. And in terms of a kneeling, tilted, rear double bicep pose, this is as good as it's ever gonna get, guys. It ain't getting any better than this right here. So Flex Wheeler, he is number 5 on the list. Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Number 4, I was a little reluctant to name Dexter Jackson number 4 on this list. After all, he competed in the 90s. When Flex Wheeler was around, when Sean Ray was around, was he really using his aesthetics to become a success in bodybuilding? Well, as the 2000s grew on, so did the bodybuilders. They got huge, massive. And you tell me, at this point in time, was the aesthetics not sucked right out of the sport? Well, Dexter Jackson saved the day. In 2008, he actually did the impossible. He did the unthinkable. He defeated Jay Cutler. And it was not by size. Well, a lot of it had to do with condition, but aesthetics as well. And considering Dexter Jackson, he actually went on to become a Mr. Olympia champion. I definitely consider him a more successful bodybuilder than any of the aforementioned, is that a proper terminology? Aforementioned gentlemen. So, Dexter the Blade Jackson. Oh my goodness, look at this back. You usually don't hear of a back shot being aesthetic, but wow, Dexter the Blade Jackson. He earns a number 4 position on this list. So there's only a couple of guys left. They must all be Mr. Olympia champions, right? Wrong. This is Steve Reeves, a dinosaur. No, I'm just joking. He competed way back in the 40s. The 1940s, laddies. I mean, this guy was way back when. But you know what? Bodybuilders really didn't look like that back then. Here was the best bodybuilder of the 40s. This was John Grimmick. And a lot of the bodybuilders did just look like that. Short, stubby, powerful looking. John Grimmick never lost, by the way. So he was always getting a victory over Steve Reeves, but after he retired, Steve Reeves was dominant, and he used, of course, the aesthetics. The way he would pose just changed the sport. And I actually would have had him higher on this list, but after Steve retired in 1950, after he defeated Reg Park, perhaps a more muscular bodybuilder, the sport went back that way to the more muscle-bound bodybuilders. So it didn't really take. But considering he was probably the very first ever aesthetically pleasing bodybuilder, Steve Reeves is number 3 on the list. Number 2, Mr. Build himself, Sean Roden. And remember, guys, this isn't saying Sean Roden is more aesthetic than any of the other bodybuilders that I mentioned. I just believe that his aesthetics, it really changed the IFBB as we know it now, today. In 2018, he did the impossible. He did what Big Ramy couldn't do with size and Kai Green, things of that nature. He defeated Phil Heath, and he did it with aesthetics. The midsections were just getting too overboard. It was getting too much. So, much like Dexter the Blade Jackson, exactly 10 years prior, Sean Roden saved the day. But unlike Dexter the Blade Jackson, where Jay Cutler came back and, they went back for the size, it seems like after the 2018 Mr. Olympia, the Olympia Championship has been awarded to the more aesthetically pleasing bodybuilders. That's where we got Brandon Curry, even Big Ramy in 2020. He wasn't too bad, guys. The midsections. Derek Lunsford, hey, he can pull a vacuum. So in my opinion, Sean Roden, he made the IFBB judging system what it is today. Now, if you want to argue that point, it is definitely worth arguing. It's just my opinion. And that just leaves one bodybuilder remaining. Number 1 on the list, Frank Zane. And a list where it features aesthetically pleasing bodybuilders, is it any wonder that Frank Zane is number 1? He'd probably be number 1 anyway, if you were just basing this on purely aesthetics. But the guy changed bodybuilding. After the Arnold era, I mean, there was size all over the place. You had your Lou Ferrignos, even Franco Columbu, just loaded with muscle. But from 1977 all the way to 1979, Frank Zane was Mr. Olympia. They could have went with more size. There could have been guys twice the size, even bigger than Arnold. But no, they went with the aesthetics. Frank Zane, look at the vacuum on the guy. This is legendary stuff. So when you think about the growth from Sergio Oliva to Arnold, and then tapered down to Frank Zane, and then after that, you had the mass monster era in the early 90s, so I'm sure that era would have came 10 years prior if it wasn't for Frank Zane. So I guess we owe Frank Zane a huge thanks for perhaps keeping the aesthetics in bodybuilding and perhaps, no stretch of the imagination here, making bodybuilding what it is today. With the Andrew Jacks and the Hattie Shupins, those midsections, we might not have had those. We might have had double, triple, treble bubble guts, the likes of which we have never seen. Look, Al Beckles back there in the background. He's probably thinking, geez, I'm better than him. Yeah, he might have been better, but you were not more aesthetically pleasing or successful. And that makes Frank Zane number one. Hit thumbs up on the video, guys. I love these requests. I enjoy doing them, and I hope you guys enjoy watching them half as much as I enjoy putting them together. Have a nice one.